Hello and welcome to Diamonds and Duds.
I'm Charles Baker. How you doing?
I am doing good. This is a podcast where Charles and I will watch sci-fi movies.
Your name?
Oh, yeah, I'm Ivan. And Charles had to remind me to tell you that I'm Ivan. This is a podcast where Charles and I will watch sci-fi movies that, for the most part, we haven't seen. Talk about how great they are in the case of Godzilla -1. Maybe talk about how crappy they are in the case of Pixel. we'll see, because we also don't talk with each other about it before we go live on these mics.
Yeah, and so make sure to follow us on Facebook, X, YouTube, Blue Sky, which should be rocking and rolling by this point, and also the TikTok.
And what we're watching today is the Adam Sandler classic Pixels.
Yeah, so Pixels is from 2015. It is his last major theatrical-only movie before he signed the Netflix deal. And here's a synopsis that we got from Netflix. So if you want to watch this, Netflix is where it's at. When aliens attack Earth in the style of old video games, the president and his childhood pals, a pack of former arcade kings, swing into action.
And this was directed by Christopher Columbus, who, if the name should sound familiar for a lot of you Harry Potter fans. He was a lot of the creative influence behind at least the early Harry Potter movies. He's also the Home Alone director, and for you '80s fans, his first movie ever is kind of a cult classic. The first movie he ever directed was Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh, yeah.
That he did.
Do you know what movie he was attached to direct before Home Alone? But after 2 meetings with the lead actor, he had to quit. And John Hughes, I think it was John Hughes, helped get him. Well, basically, hey, I got this other one, and that was Home Alone. Do you know what that movie is?
I do not.
Christmas Vacation. He had 2 meetings with Chevy Chase, known in Hollywood as one of the biggest assholes. And the first meeting was him and Chevy talking 45 minutes about Chevy didn't know that he was the director. And keep in mind, he had directed movies before. He had directed Adventures in Babysitting already happened, but he's like, wait, you're the director? And the second one was him, Chevy, and it was some other person. It was just him and Chevy talking. Chevy wouldn't even, and so he's like, I can't do this. And then I think it was John Hughes said, I got this other thing perfect for it, and he just slid right into Home Alone.
Yeah, and he was great in Home. You know what? Let's say a positive thing to start this. Yeah. He was a great director of Home Alone and a great director of the early Harry Potter movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
This movie on Rotten Tomatoes got an 18% from critics.
Wow, that's surprisingly high.
It got 46% from the audience, which I thought was a little... It was lower than I was anticipating, because this is the kind of movie that when you look at Rotten Tomatoes probably has about a 10 to 15% from the critics, but it's one of those ones where the audience says 75% for some reason.
Yeah. And
it really struck me that the audience also thought it sucked.
Yes. So basically we start off...
one other thing, just to give you something I saw, 2 things. One... It was written by 3 people.
Okay.
One of the people that wrote it's I think he's kind of the one of Adam Sandler's guys. He hasn't written the last 3 or 4 Netflixy Adam Sandler things, but he was the guy who originally wrote Billy Madison, for example.
Oh, okay.
And so virtually all of Adam Sandler's stuff he is a writer on.
Yeah.
The third person who wrote it had directed 6 shorts.
Oh.
And that's it.
Wow.
And hasn't done anything since.
I wonder if,
The second person went on to write one other thing post Pixels and has not written anything since and didn't have anything that I saw on his IMDb. But he went on to write a Christmas movie that you told me about that's one of your favorite new Christmas movies.
Did he write Klaus?
No, he wrote Office Christmas Party.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, and he hasn't done anything since then?
No.
His Office Christmas Party is a redeem. Like, that's a redeemer.
Yes. Yeah, and the other people weren't involved. Like, I'm not saying that he did Office Christmas Party by himself. I didn't go, like, down the rabbit hole or anything.
Yeah.
But I was kind of, like, curious what they had done since.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that guy's actually... It made me optimistic, because I always look this stuff up before I watch.
Yeah.
And so it incorrectly made me optimistic.
Because Office Christmas Party is a very entertaining.
If you need a newer Christmas movie, that and what's the Seth Rogen one?
Seth Rogen one is The Night Before.
Those two of the, if you want kind of a raunchier, newer Christmas movie, those are two great ones.
Yeah, those are for raunchy Christmas. Those two are my go-to, along with the with a little bit older now, but still great. Harold and Kumar Christmas.
Yes. One other thing I'll put, I was looking for a good quote for this one from a critic.
Ooh, nice.
And this one, it ended up ringing true for me. It's from Mick LaSalle, who didn't recognize him, but I don't look up a lot of critic shit.
Yeah.
Though Pixels may be hard to respect fully or endorse, it's also impossible to dislike. Which I kind of get where he was coming from on that. It's hard to, like, fully hate this movie. But for me, that also is what's annoying, because parts of this movie have charm. Parts of this movie I find endearing. But other parts of this movie were made by people who had never played a video game.
Yeah.
Or had never, like, workshopped. You know, like, why is Centipede one of the... I'll let you kick it off here, Charles.
All right, so we're opening... we got a flashback, summer 1982. We're getting basically, I'm like, all right, this is an interesting film concept. Basically, you get young Adam Sandler and, his buddy, young Kevin James, who really sucks at Galaga. I mean, like, they go to the arcade in 1982 is what you did. And, like, okay, Adam Sandler's obviously, like, this genius because he sees all the patterns and whatnot. And Kevin James sucks. When I say sucks at Galaga, I mean, like, he dies, like, in ways that, like, I didn't, like, a 2-year-old wouldn't die. And so, like, then you got basically he's gonna. They also get to meet a creepy kid with glasses. And we get, like, a montage of, like, him, being awesome at all these video games. And, like, is this one day and then we go to a video game competition.
Yes, and it's called the 1982 Worldwide Video Game Arcade Championship.
Yep. And
why video arcade?
I know. See, I have a hard time believing that a 1982 video game tournament would bring this much attention. I know they existed.
I also had trouble, and I know it was a plot point because I needed to somehow get all these games into it so you knew about them ahead of time. But I was trying to understand how, like, the competition part worked. If everybody's playing a different fucking video game to see who wins. Yeah, and also part of it is that the kid who ends up being Adam Sandler and Peter Dinklage tie, and they make a point of the only reason why they're having a championship is because they tied, right?
Yes.
Why were the arcades already on stage? The two Donkey Kong machines, which they played when they tied, were on stage the entire time they were playing.
They were. And, first of all, when Peter Dinklage's young character, I'm like, already, that set a really bad tone from, like, oh, God. He's gonna need to give back one of his Emmys.
I think he might need to give back all of them because it felt like he was reading off cue cards because he was too stupid to know his lines.
I think it's even worse than that. I think he was like
I don't think he gave a shit. I don't think he gave a shit.
Oh, and I don't think he was the only one that didn't give it. There's one more person in here that gives
Josh Gad.
No, Adam Sandler gave no shit. Now, the difference to me is that Adam Sandler just phones it in. And so I think Peter Dinklage, or maybe he realized like the script was shit and like his character was shit. So he's like, okay,
But they're like he was probably coming off of what he called Game of Thrones. And it was probably before Game of Thrones, the later seasons really paid their actors a lot. So let me take back some of that stuff because it was probably one of those things where he got to cash in his Game of Thrones stuff a little bit. So.
But I also bet it's like, okay, he's seeing all this stuff sucks. He's like, you know what? I think I'm going to try this stuff. And you know what, Peter? Everything you tried was worse. And
Going back to the video game, like the competition, the other thing I had a problem with, if this was like a competition that was like sponsored and stuff, why did everybody have to put in their own quarters?
Yes. And also, at this point, and this is something that it's happened. I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole with the other movie that this happened in. I'm sorry. If you're going to play We Will Rock You in a moment to like motivate like some type of competition thing, it's got to be fucking earned. Okay? They had a We Will Rock You at the beginning with like, right at the beginning, I'm like, this is not a it does not. It is not earned at all. It harkens back to the worst movie I've ever seen, still bar none, A Knight's Tale with the late Heath Ledger. Where 5 minutes into this medieval movie, everybody in the stand starts going boom, boom, chick, and I wanted to hit people. But going back, that I thought that was very, very unearned. And are video games really this popular that they're putting it in a capsule and sending it to space? I mean, I get it's a plot point they need to for the movie.
Yeah, I get it was a plot point for the movie, but like the problem I had with it, I don't have a problem with the premise of the movie.
No,
I have a problem of them picking 1982.
Yeah,
what they should have picked was like 1990.
Maybe partner with either Nintendo or Sega.
Yeah, exactly, and part of it, and it might be that Charles and I, that's our wheelhouse video, like the home console generation wise. But I think that like would, because obviously people remember Galaga. No one remembers Centipede.
No.
I mean, Q*bert was cool, but I would venture that I'm one of the only people
that knows who the fuck Q*bert is.
Yeah, and so that's where I think they lost a lot of this. Because I know we were talking about the writers initially, because there are lines in this movie that are legitimately funny. Yeah. And I think if they had picked some... Because part of the thing I think they realized, and we're kind of all over the place here, but one of the things I was realizing too as I was going through this is I think as they're writing some of the later stuff in the movie, which we'll get to, I think they realized that, oh shit, all the stuff we can't just have stuff from 1982. So they just arbitrarily just started having video games from later, which made me wonder, how did the aliens know about those?
Yeah. Exactly, and then we go back to present day, because Peter Dinklage's character wins, and apparently that was enough to ruin Adam Sandler's entire life. Okay, Kevin James is now president. Okay, and then I'm like, okay, this is a fucking fantasy. Okay, warning. I hate Kevin James. Now I will say, the nicest thing I could ever say about him is that he's not the worst part of this movie. But I will say I cannot be objective when it comes to Kevin James. I believe he's the most untalented performer in the history of film or television media.
Kevin, if you're listening, I don't think you're that bad.
Yeah. He has never done or said anything funny or entertaining whatsoever. That show, The King of Queens, is the biggest piece of garbage that's ever been on. That show sucked. So I can't be objective when it comes to Kevin James. Now, that being said...
so you're saying you wouldn't have voted for him?
No. Oh, God, I would not have. Well, you seen him in this movie, would you? How did he get elected president? Now... I will say he's not the worst part of this movie. I'm just stating I cannot be objective about Kevin James because he's not funny. And part of it is his show, My King of Queens. I hate and you know this, I hate the tired, played out trope, which it's kind of gone away now.
It's kind of gone away.
Of the schluppy, dopey husband who's always dumb in every single episode, is dumb and makes sense. And the hot put upon wife who, snarky wife. I mean, like, it goes all the way back to the Honeymooners, but it really became overdone when Home Improvement did it really well, and then it got done to death for.
And then CBS. Then there was a while where like half of CBS's shows were that.
So and that's kind of why I don't like Kevin James. But yeah, he's president. I put in here I think I probably put in like 6 times in my notes. I hate Kevin James. He's having lunch with Adam Sandler. First of all, like they really this is the way some Kevin James has time to his approval rating sounds like it's like in the 0 point, like less than 1, like they're in decimal points, but he's hanging out with Adam Sandler, which in the real world, Adam Sandler would have gotten vetted right the hell out. He never the Secret Service.
But yeah, and the other problem I had is one of the things is this part where they talk about Kevin James's wife, or
that's one of the things they talk. Because
the other problem, I don't have a problem with this story. It sounds like his wife doesn't like being the first lady, which is fine. That's not to here or there. I thought they completely wasted. What's her name? Jane. Because
it's from 30.
From
30 Rock.
They completely wasted her from 30 Rock. My guess is her stuff got cut out, or else why would she have agreed? It might be the Peter Dinklage thing where it's like, hey, they gave me a little bit of a payday.
I bet there's a bunch on the cutting room floor.
But because it seems she was completely wasted in this. Because she's not bad, but it's because she has maybe one line the entire movie, and this would have been probably 3 or 4 years after 30 Rock ended, so she would have been a sought after commodity.
Yeah, she's very entertaining. Yeah. And for 30 Rock, if you're not familiar with her name, on 30 Rock, she was like the actress who was kind of like she was a blonde actress, friend of Tina Fey, who was kind of dopey kind of stuff. She was entertaining.
Yes.
So mine was like, so his skill was useful in 1982, but it's in video games, but it's absolutely worthless in a world where e-gaming and making millions off e-gaming is a thing.
Yeah.
I also found it hard to believe that one loss in a 1982 video game tournament as a kid derailed Adam Sandler's character from going to MIT, which was, as I said in the flashback, he wanted to go to MIT.
And part of the problem I had with this also is how it was written, because the MIT part there was no point. They didn't need to mention. Yeah. They didn't even need to go down the path of that ruined his life. Yeah. That wasn't really an important plot point. Yeah. They could have just been, hey, he ended up being part of the Nerd Brigade, which is like whatever the Best Buy nerd thing is.
Yeah.
And they could have just said that's where he ended up.
Yeah. And the reason why it's in there is because remember, this is, at the end of his long string, when he was just theatrical, is the Adam Sandler trope of him playing like a lovable yet pathetic loser man-child who is capable of way more.
And you know what? Now that we're talking this through, his Netflix string was way different.
Yeah,
it was still.
Yeah, not all of it was good.
Not all of it was good, but I think the fact that he got a number of movie deals in a row let him kind of. And you and I have talked about this off thing. One of the things I've always respected about Sandler is that what I've always respected about Sandler is that he probably saw this movie. He saw it wasn't going to be great, but he was contractually tied to it. So he's like, F it, my friends can be in it.
Yeah, exactly. No matter what, some movies of his I like, some I don't. But he's one of the people I respect most on the personal level in all of Hollywood. He's just a good dude, and he cares most about employing his friends, spending time with his friends. I do respect it. Thank you, Adam, for not putting Rob Schneider in this movie. Rob Schneider's just not funny.
And so we see it. It then goes to Guam for a second, where some weird shit happens in Guam, but they don't really mention it.
And you see pixelated military guy gets sent up to this guy. And you see Adam Sandler go on a house call.
It goes on a house call to install a TV.
Yeah,
and this goes to one of the lines I thought was funny in the movie. he goes to this kid who looks like I'm horrible at this. 10, 12, something like that. And kid's getting some like 50-inch flat screen TV. If this was today, it would have been, what do you call it, a PC setup. Yeah. But he was getting some like 50-inch, and he's like, "Hey, is it your birthday?" And the kid's like, "No, my parents are getting divorced. My dad just cheated on my mom." I legitimately thought that the way that kid portrayed that and the way Sandler played that off, I thought was hilarious.
Yeah, and so like he has for a moment he has a bonding moment with his mom, but then tries to kiss her. I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, that was bold, and it's a good thing. Like the end of the World Cup, dude, he probably would have gotten his ass fired.
Yes, and so then he leaves because Kevin James calls him
to the White House.
Kevin James calls him to the White House because that's what he does.
Yeah, apparently.
And then she also, and the thing I thought was very peculiar is like part of it's meant to be a funny thing of they both leave at the same time, and he's making fun of her for chasing him, and she's making like fun of him, but like he's ahead of her.
Yeah.
And like she should be way more concerned. But two things. One, she should be way more concerned than she is about this. Or she should fucking know who he is.
Yeah.
Because she's part of the Security Council that he meets with. And I think Kevin James just sort of has lunch with his friend Adam Sandler. And if the president was having lunch all the time with someone from Best Buy's like Nerd Crew or whatever the fuck it's called, that would be news.
Yeah, because Adam Sandler, when he's in the White House, he acts like, he's there all the time. Everybody knows. Yeah. Forgot. Also, like, they really just didn't give any effort into their, like, the set, the way that they were going to enter into the White House. Because, like, they made it seem it's no more than a gate at, like, a man, like at like a $2 million mansion. That's all it was.
Well, and also
with a guy at the gate.
Sandler mentioned, "Hey, this lady's going to be chasing me. You should like shoot her."
Yeah,
he basically is what he says on his way in, and the guy's like, you can go in." Shouldn't that security guy be concerned about what Mr. Sandler said? But not even that it's her. He knows that it's not her because she's colonel or whatever. But shouldn't that guy be concerned that Sandler said that somebody's coming to like shoot stuff?
Probably. But at this point, because he meets with the Security Council, and here is where we get to the lone shining beacon in this movie, the lone bright spot, if you will, and that is the great Brian Cox.
And I had wrote earlier in the movie when there was the bike scene and he was riding up to the arcade, Brian Cox ?
Yeah, because Brian Cox, it's a limited role, but he's gold. He is good at it.
Yes.
So, like, Kevin James, basically what happened is these aliens intercepted the transmission of, the video games, and, apparently the aliens have 2 brain cells, and they took it on a challenge, and they attacked Guam or whatever it was with one of the video games. I don't remember what it was.
I don't remember what it was either.
And so Adam Sandler.
Was it Galaga?
Yes, I think. And Adam Sandler noticed it, noticed it, and so he gets to speak in front of the National Security Council, which they understandably think he's an idiot. I did have a good line where Adam Sandler mentions Google. It's like, okay, let's blow up Google. It was one of the military people. But this more like Adam Sandler, he's not. Adam Sandler is not. He's not. It's not even that he's horribly bad, because Peter Dinklage is way worse than him in this. Adam Sandler does not elicit one laugh. He is not trying. He is tired. And again, afterwards, he goes to Netflix, and regardless of whether or not some of those movies are bad, some of those movies were good. I mean, some of those movies are great, but he I think it re-energized
I think
him completely.
it re-energized. Yeah,
And I thought he felt really, really bored and tired with like tentpole comedy after tentpole comedy, and so it at least allowed him more creative freedom. And so, but right now you can tell he's just tired and he's just sick of this, and he does not want to be there this entire movie.
No, but it's one of those things where he's also a pragmatist, or whatever the right word is, but he's like, hey, I could probably make $50 million from this. And he's like, this is going to suck for 3 months.
Yeah.
And people aren't going to like it. But,
yeah. And then so we also, they laugh him in the building, and then we're introduced, remember, as I mentioned, a creepy kid with glasses. We get an adult creepy kid with glasses, which I believe, like I said, is Josh Gad, right?
Josh Gad. And the problem I had with Josh Gad is not necessarily, he's really bad. For my money, he's the worst part of this movie, and I don't fault him.
He's right there with Peter Dinklage. Yeah.
But the problem I had, and I wrote this in my notes, they cast Josh Gad as the comic relief in a movie with Kevin James and Adam Sandler, ?
Yeah.
And again, I blame the script and the directing, not necessarily in the fact that they had to cast a third person to be the comic relief in a movie with 2 other, at the time, top billed comedians is what I had a problem with.
Yeah, like Ladlow or Lad, whatever his name is.
Wonder Kid.
I really wanted him to take a bat to the head during this movie.
Your favorite actor, one of your favorite actors, Charles, is in this movie. And in my opinion, he has the best line in this movie.
Yes, So Sean Bean has a brief brief moment when they go to France.
Yes.
Basically, so Ladlow's has stumbled upon this thing, and so he finds via VHS, I think it was, basically the challenge video that the aliens had sent, which basically uses 80s television talk show videos, and which I don't know where it came from, considering they just sent out the video game, but whatever. And I'm like, first of all, the video is really creepy. I'm like, wouldn't the aliens be smarter than this? Because obviously they reached out, because that information wasn't in the capsule. They reached out and got it, so then they should have realized, okay, that's not what the.
I think you and I are thinking about this movie a little too much. But I think the problem with this is, and if some people you're listening are like, well, yeah, you guys are way over fucking thinking this. Part of the problem with that, though, is that not only did they not go down the logic route with this movie, but they also picked all these freaking, other than Pac-Man, they picked all these other video games that nobody fucking knows what they are. And so that's the other problem. They didn't go nostalgia. They thought they went nostalgia. They didn't go nostalgia.
No. Yeah, no one knew what most of these video game things were.
And that's why I think they should have gone for something with the late 80s, early 90s, for something where that's kind of the peak of when it hit the home console generation. But also, would Sandler have been a kid in 82? He would have, I think he would have.
Not that old.
And so that's the other thing I also had a problem with, is that him and
age-wise it doesn't.
Age-wise it didn't law. And again, this is meant to be a comedy, and we're not meant to think about it that much. But they didn't think of any of this.
Yeah, you have to. There's a bare minimum that you have to think.
Because there's a bare minimum, there should be a logic check for movies like this, where they go through and hey, logically 82 doesn't make sense. Can we just make it 86?
Yeah,
something like that. Something like that. Or there's a lot of stuff in this movie that just doesn't that someone didn't do a once over.
No,
through a script from a logical standpoint.
Yeah, and so basically the alien said it's first to 3 in this challenge. You have to not cheat. Basically, that they won Guam. The second one they give the coordinates each one. The second they figure out the coordinates are going to be in India. They debated whether or not to tell India, but they didn't, and of course they automatically lost. I kind of wrote, plus India probably would have declared war if on the United States, if and so after the second loss, that's when they're going to bring in Adam Sandler and creepy kid as consultants.
Single lady leads team also.
Yeah.
Because we also have, obviously we're going to call Sandler, and the people we know their real names in real life. I call her Single Lady.
Yeah.
Is my name for her, is Single Lady.
Yeah, and also at this point, again, the trope, she's obviously the love interest for Sandler, and as in all of these Sandler movies, right now they are just bickering and they are insulting each other constantly, which is what happens in all these tropes.
Yeah.
In all these. And so, then they have the whole scene where, they're giving the speeches to, the military.
And Josh Gad has I think that they think this part's hilarious. They have a really uncomfortable. Josh Gad gives a really uncomfortable, borderline homophobic speech to these soldiers.
Yeah, and it falls flat. I wrote down worst speech ever. It was horrible. I'm like, that got awkward fast. I'm like, damn, Ladlow is really sexually harassing these soldiers. But then and the next scene is it's one of the worst scenes in the movie. And this is a really shit movie. Kevin James, because in the first meeting with Adam Sandler, when he was talking about Adam Sandler, he's like, I'm not, my wife just is saying I spend enough time with her and stuff. Adam Sandler, mentions, carving off some time to just, one-on-one time. An alien invasion is going on, and Kevin James, as president, is going, and the public at large now knows that there's aliens are attacking.
They know something. At the borderline, they know another nation is declaring war on it. It's a bare minimum.
Yeah, and Kevin James he's at a date day with his wife.
See, and I don't have a problem with the scene as it is, Charles. Yeah. I have a problem with where they put that scene. Okay? That scene, Charles, should have been in place of the scene in the beginning when it was Adam Sandler and Kevin James watching the video in the pizza place or whatever the fuck it was. This should have been at that point.
Yes.
There was no point in showing a date night with Kevin Smith and his wife, who they didn't let talk, even though I think she's won multiple Emmys.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And, it's, again, middle of an alien invasion. So, they think, all right, next one's in France, and you get the montage of them, training. London, that's right. Yeah. You get them where they're training, going to be where they train them in these different video games.
And this goes to the part where I think there was some really good part, the part where Adam Sandler is training them on the games. I thought where Josh Gad was again kind of sexually harassing these guys again.
Oh yeah, I get it.
But the Adam Sandler part of this, I thought was very intriguing and interesting, and he was trying to teach them about the patterns because they're going to have to identify them as and I thought that was a good thing to do. I think it was just one of those things where the script had stuff in there. They just needed someone who knew how to organize stuff and to edit stuff, because a lot of this stuff just didn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, and so they're not allowed. They're there in London, but they're not allowed to participate. Meanwhile, a single lady, she's developed these light guns that are going to mimic the style of the games, and so then it's going to be that's how they're going to be able to fight back, is by imitating the games. I'll get back to that later. And this is where Sean Bean is in. And hey, you know what? Sean Bean lived. That doesn't happen very often.
He probably wishes he didn't.
Oh, yeah, probably not. Yeah.
But this goes to what I think is the best line in the movie. Josh Gad, again, tries to sexually harass the soldiers again. Yeah. And Josh Bean screams at him, I don't want to hear another word out of you.
Yeah.
I wrote down, I agree.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And so, and then it showed, Kevin James is in, a war room with, British lady with, the joke is you can't understand anything she says. And I wrote, did I mention that I fucking hate Kevin James?
I don't have a problem with, that. I thought that part was funny. It didn't make sense for where it was. because you're trying to build, because the movie has that part which on its own was kind of funny, but also as at the point in the movie where they're trying to build tension.
Yeah.
For a movie like this, it's trying to build tension,
Yeah.
but that just relieves all the tension.
Yep, and so, the military can't handle when the centipedes attack. And again, they've already lost 2, so if they lose...
If they lose, this is over.
Yeah, and so Sandler and
Wonder Man.
Creepy Boy take over, grab the light guns. They take over. They do save the day, and the world is now one. It's now they're down 1-2.
And I don't want to sound bad for anybody who's older than us, and maybe this was their favorite game, but has anybody under the age of 50 ever played Centipede?
Yeah.
Not to sound bad, and I'm sure the game, if you were a kid back then, I'm sure it was fine. I don't understand how, because this is meant to be kind of the climax of of the movie, and it's the audience doesn't understand the game you're portraying.
Yeah.
Is the Pac-Man stuff later? Yeah. The audience understands Pac-Man.
People understand.
People understand not just sport. People understand Galaga. People understand Donkey Kong.
Yeah, which they wasted Galaga.
They wasted Galaga, but like they should have found something. And be honest, the way this was looking, shooting straight up in the sky, this part should have been Galaga.
Yeah, exactly, it should have.
And because the problem is the audience was confused and doesn't know how the game works.
Yeah,
is part of the problem of this scene.
Yeah, and so now they're like, oh, we need to find somebody else, for the team. And that's where we're reintroduced to Peter Dinklage's character, who's in jail. I mean, they try. First of all, I feel that Dinklage's character. First of all, as we were, Peter Dinklage gets so much fault for this role. The writers wrote a horrible role, and I felt like, again, he probably took the role for the money, which I get.
Which. Not to get a side. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And he took it for the money. He's probably sees all this shit, terrible stuff that his character is written for, and he decided, I'm going to go with some of my own ideas. And his ideas were way worse, And one of the things I'll say here is we're kind of ranting against Dinklage a little bit. One of the things personally, I don't have a problem when an actor takes a movie like this. No.
Is because as much as all you people listening will say, oh, well, I love Game of Thrones, or I love Breaking Bad, which I do too. Those shows are great. The actors, unless you're Bryan Cranston later on, these actors don't make shit for these roles. A lot of times they don't make anything for these roles, but they're now so popular, they'll get, hey, Mr. Peter Dinklage, will you be in this? We'll give you $10 million, which I have no problem with them doing stuff like this.
And what it felt like, they were trying so hard they were trying way too hard with Peter's character. They wanted, okay, he's just going to be out there. He's going to be zany. He's going to be wacky. He's going to be, and like, it was so forced. Like he was giving his request, for what he would do, to, in order to help, and it was like, he wanted a three-way Serena Williams and Martha Stewart, all kinds of weird ass.
I had a problem with this also, and they kind of addressed it after I wrote it. But the part I had a problem with is that the first thing the President of the United States says is that we'll talk to the parole board to see what we can do. Yeah. The President of the United States can pardon people.
Yeah. He can just pardon his ass.
Which,
it's a federal crime.
But if someone was helping out saving the world, they would let him out.
Yeah.
Unless they murdered a bunch of people or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it feels like they're trying to create like tension in that moment for like no damn reason. Come on. And it goes, so they're going back to the lab, like the show, and like, single ladies like trying to show us some of the stuff she did, specifically some of the Pac-Man vehicles, and like Brian Cox is all up in her on it, like, oh, this better goddamn work. I'm thinking, like, she is not getting enough credit for inventing all this shit on the fly. She's inventing all kinds of stuff in like a day in each case. It is really impressive how much she's inventing shit on the fly.
Yes.
And again, I'm like, it's just really hard to enjoy the 15th man child who grows up of Sandler's career.
Yeah, and we'll say as we're going through here, they need a fourth person because they need to have 4 ghosts.
Yeah.
And so, was this the actual real creator of Pac-Man?
I think
I should have looked it up.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of cool. I thought a lot of the Pac-Man stuff, until we get to a Peter Dinklage thing in a second.
Yep.
I thought a lot of Pac-Man stuff was ingenious. There was some plot holes probably as far as, well, how do they let the other side know that these are the ghost cars? Yeah. But at that point, for me, in these kind of movies, they had written enough in where they wrote that thing saying, hey, this thing does the video game stuff.
Yeah.
And so as far as I was concerned, that was enough for me hey, this stuff now works video game wise. And so I thought the fact that they were doing Pac-Man in the streets, I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting setup. Then, of course, there's because they got to get Pac-Man 3 times as in the game in order to win. Pac-Man eats the power pellet, which if you've ever played Pac-Man, that means Pac-Man gets to eat the ghost, and Josh Gad survives, but his vehicle goes pretty much in the dust. In the dust there, and he mentioned he's annoyed that they're leaving him behind. Of course, they need to catch Pac-Man and hit him 2 more times.
Yeah, and
of course they're leaving you behind. You're not in danger anymore.
Yeah, and I think that was part of that was just a bad written one-liner. I think they wanted to have a one. It would have been weird for him not to have a line as stuff went off, but I think it just wasn't great.
Yeah, and then there's seems to be a dire moment, and so what happens is Peter Dinklage seems to be, and so Peter Dinklage seems to be, as he's going, Peter Dinklage has a few moments where he seems to be skipping around the course. And but then the guys, we end up winning. Hey, yeah, we won.
Hey, we won.
And, this party. And then, they announce, you cheated. And so the forfeit's over. Tomorrow morning, we're going to send everything down and everything pixelated to kill you.
I had a problem with the cheating.
Me too.
See,
me too.
I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem with the cheating as a story point because it made sense for the Donkey Kong part that he would have cheated there. And it made sense for him to want to. I think the better point would have been for him to try and cheat, but to have the single lady in them go, "Hey, yeah, we're monitoring everything over here.
Yeah,
why'd you cheat?"
Yeah, and another big thing point of issue that I had with the cheating, they made a point of saying basically it was a Pac-Man cheat code that he was using for skipping around that he used to do in the game, and I'm sure that existed in the arcade game. I don't know. I'm sure that existed, and that's fine. She didn't create a real-life Pac-Man game. She created light systems on those actual cars that mimicked.
Okay, I think we have a bigger point here. Okay, and one of the things they're glossing over, and maybe this is why, Charles. Okay. At the end of the movie, Peter Dinklage gets to have a threesome with Marcia Stewart and Serena Williams. Is because he invented teleportation.
Actually, yeah, exactly. I was like, what in the world? No. So what how did he invent teleportation? That's not how that would have worked.
And I have no problem with the cheating story. Mm-hmm. I think what should have happened is that he did something, it created it, but I think. See, I agree with it, and to be honest, Ivan didn't think of that.
Yeah.
What you mentioned on the teleportation, this is the first I've thought of that.
Yeah.
My bigger problem was that they were tracking everything back at headquarters, so they all would have known he cheated.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have cared if the other side doesn't notice. It's hey, you saved the human race, so we're not gonna
tell.
We're not gonna tell. But yeah.
Yeah, so we get our obligatory Dan Patrick cameo, which again, I don't have an issue with. He's a buddy of Sandler's, that's fine. Traumatized Kubert, that was kind of entertaining. And I will say, the effects in this movie, the effects are really good in this movie.
Yes.
That is something that is top notch. And yeah.
And as much as we kind of ridiculed and joked about Kubert earlier, I thought the way they had Kubert and Kubert's dialogue, I thought Kubert might be the best. I know we kind of joked about Sean Bean, but for me, the best character in this movie until a point was Kubert.
Yeah.
I had a major problem with how Kubert got wrapped up.
Yeah, me too. So like it's so now like Peter Peter Dinklage goes off and Sandler and crew they're gonna try to save the day by breaking in and the aliens say, all right, we're gonna give you one more chance to beam up.
I have two things I want to mention initially. It mentions Brian Cox.
Yeah.
Brian Cox at some point. And again, Brian Cox was great.
Yeah.
I wrote, why is Brian Cox so mad?
Yeah, I was wondering that too.
And also, I wrote, who is the robot guy?
Yeah, I wrote that here. Who is Dollar Tree Conehead?
He looks like...
What's up with Dollar Tree
He looks like Conehead, or he also looks like...
Lobot from Star Wars.
Yes, he looks like kind of a shitty Lobot from Star Wars. Where did that guy come from?
I know. And so the next, the climax plays out as like I think Sandler and because the kid gets kidnapped, Sandler, single lady, and Kevin James get beamed up to the mothership while Josh Ladlow starts making out with one of the pixelated warriors.
Yeah.
That he had been lusting after the entire movie.
And I forget where it goes. And this my second favorite, and actually this might be my first favorite line. As much as I like the Sean Bean line, the single lady. There's a Smurf that pops up.
Oh yeah.
Who the Smurf's just happy-go-lucky and's like, "Hi, how you doing?" And then she fucking roasts it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "Don't tell anybody I killed a Smurf."
Yeah.
Which I thought that was almost frustrating because the movie has parts like that that are legitimately entertaining. It's just,
but also, why a Smurf? Because again, these are all supposed to be games that were played in the '92 arcade. Why was Tetris?
At this point, I had kind of written that. I think this is at the point in the movie where they went to write this scene and they're like, "Oh fuck, there's not enough shit from '82," because they also had the dog from Duck Hunt in here. So
what can we get the rights to?
Yeah, it was like, what can we get the rights to? Which is also why somebody should have stepped in, and even if they kept everything the same, okay, but just change it from 82 to like 90. Even if they didn't like get a thing with Nintendo, just make it 19. There was I grew up then. There were still arcades until like the mid 90s.
Because like obviously you couldn't have gotten like Mario or Sonic, but there's so many other games. I know like there could have been like you could have might have been able to pay to have like a Street Fighter character in there or something like
Mega
that.
Man.
Oh yeah, you surely would have been able to get Mega Man or one of those guys. Yeah.
And to be honest, Nintendo may have if Nintendo probably would have licensed some of their like non-Mario. Yeah. Some of the people they were never going to put in the Mario movie and some of that stuff.
They did. I mean, Duck Hunt.
Yeah,
they put the Duck Hunt dog.
They would have licensed some of that. And so I know we've kind of harped on that a few times, but I think that's what makes it frustrating to us.
Yeah, and Dinklage obviously he comes back to help, and as you would imagine, it comes down between Sandler beating Donkey Kong, and you learn that he's only.
I was surprised at this part.
Yeah, he was able to overcome because he found out that Dinklage cheated, and so he really was the best. Okay, I still don't understand how that held him back all those years, but whatever. And Josh Gad makes babies with Kubert.
And see, that's the part. See, up until that part, I was debating because our scale is basically diamond or dud, and I was like, is this going to be like a one diamond that, hey, it's parts of it are entertaining enough to watch? because I'm like, for me, Qbert was super funny, and I liked how he was kind of scared, and like he was getting the shit kicked out of it. And then they just sort of turn him into a female and let Josh Gad fuck the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Which also, again, why did they have the part where they were showing Josh Gad maybe being gay?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
Just homophobic
yeah.
in the movie. So what's your overall rating for this?
Dud.
What number on the scale? So remember the scale 1 to 5 on the dud scale. 1 is like so dud is bad. 1 is absolutely utterly redeemable, unwatchable. 5 is like this is a shitty movie, but at the very it's entertaining at least.
It's a shitty movie that could end up on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and it's like, hey, it's so bad it's fun kind of thing. I'd probably put this. It's a dud. It's not a 1 because I found some redeeming stuff. I'd probably say like a 2.5.
For me, it's a dud as well, and I gave it a 1.5. I will give it the effects. And there's 1 or 2 other minor aspects. Qbert was kind of enjoyable, but for the most part, they
missed the boat on this. This very easily, if it had a better script writer, very easily could have turned into a franchise for people.
Yeah.
Is the disappointment.
Yeah. So next time. We went to the well with Adam Sandler. It didn't work too well. What do you think we try again?
Let's try Sandler again.
Yeah, so we're not going to learn from our mistakes, and we're going to go with a more recent Adam Sandler movie. And it's sci-fi. I've only seen the post, like the image on screen. I think I might have heard that it was made a while back. I think this is less than a comedy, but it is a sci-fi movie called Spaceman.
And it's one of those movies I've been wanting to watch. It's one of the things that Sandler was able to do that once he got this Netflix contract, that they let him, as long as he made the occasional blockbuster kind of thing for him, they'd let him take chances with some movies too.
Yeah, and so that one obviously will be on Netflix.
Yep. And as always, follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, X,
Blue Sky, everything. Follow us on everything.
Follow us on everything. Not in real life. Please don't do that.
Yeah, please don't.
Or if you do, please be really good so we don't see it.
Yeah. So, have a good one, everybody.
All right. Have a good one. See ya.